Now let us talk about the spermatogenesis. What is the difference between spermatogenesis versus ovulation, doctor? Ovulation is a cyclical process. It is once a while, whereas spermatogenesis is an everyday process. So that is the reason it is not cyclical. Once more, question is at the level of the nursing level. Who will menstruate, men will menstruate or not, kind of question. Cyclical or, I hope that no one answered wrong this option. I mean, in exam hall, we end up in answering this kind of option, answering this kind of option and coming out. Then, because it looks little fancy, why such a simple thing will be asked in the exam hall? Simple things are only asked in exam. Only we are little more complicated than them. Now the other question comes. Is it continuous GnRH or pulsatile GnRH which is important? Pulsatile GnRH production and release is more physiological. Then testosterone is produced from Leydig cells, accepted. But under the influence of LH or FSH? Under the influence of LH but not FSH. Let us talk about Sertoli cells. Other option given by Sertoli cells are important for mitotic and meiotic activity very much. At all stages of differentiation, you require the Sertoli cells. They provide the structural and the metabolic support, and there are many reasons why they are important to make spermatogenesis happen, because they secrete all the essential ingredients like the androgen binding protein, etc., in order to make this spermatogenesis a successful process. Now this is how the Leydig cells look like. They are also called interstitial cells of Leydig, which are adjacent to the seminiferous tubules. They produce the testosterone, and for that they basically require the LH but not FSH. Now the question comes, then what is the role of FSH on the Leydig cells? For the Leydig cells to be responsive to the action of LH, they require some priming that need to be done by the FSH. That is the only role of FSH. But the primary role is for the LH to make the Leydig cells to produce the testosterone, is what I like to underscore to all of you. Now deltoid has many fibers, anterior, posterior, etc. So anterior border of the upper surface of the lateral third of the ventricle, clavicle, is the point where the anterior fibers will originate. Now what movements are the anterior fibers involved? For the shoulder abduction, when the shoulder is externally rotated, we require anterior fibers, and the lateral fibers are involved in the shoulder abduction. When the shoulder is internally rotated and abducted, then we require the lateral fibers. But let us quickly review, doctor, what are the various shoulder movements, where are the anterior fibers are involved and posterior fibers are involved. That is a very important question. Basically the deltoid anterior and lateral, both of them are important for our shoulder flexion. Deltoid posterior is important for the shoulder extension, and the deltoid anterior and lateral, both of them are important for the abduction of the shoulder, whereas for the transverse flexion you require deltoid anterior, and transverse abduction you require the deltoid posterior, and for the transverse extension you require the deltoid posterior once more. Then for the internal rotation, what do you require, doctor? You require basically deltoid anterior, and the deltoid posterior is important for the lateral rotation. So there is a reason, in essence, what is the answer? You basically require it for the flexion and also for the medial rotation. The anterior fibers of the deltoid is what need to be remembered. Now which is not a stratified non-keratinized squamous epithelium is a very important question. All of you know we have simple cuboidal, squamous, stratified, which is keratinized, non-keratinized, etc. Typically, the non-keratinized stratified squamous will be there wherever the mucous membrane is lining the inside of the mouth, the esophagus and part of the rectum. So quickly summarize, doctor, what type of epithelia are there in which important parts of the body? Favorite topic for the future exam. Oropharynx has got stratified squamous non-keratinized, whereas larynx has got the pseudo-stratified columnar ciliated, is what need to be remembered. And if you talk about the digestive system, in the esophagus, once more you have the non-keratinized stratified squamous, and the cornea also has got the non-keratinized stratified squamous, is what need to be remembered. And how about the tympanic cavity? Tympanic cavity basically has got the three layers. The inner layer is the one which has got the cuboidal, simple cuboidal type of epithelium, whereas the outer layer has got not the non-keratinized. It is the keratinized type of squamous, stratified squamous epithelium is there. So what is your answer, doctor? So it is the tympanic membrane which becomes the answer, which does not have non-keratinized. Now let us go to the next question. For the porphyria-induced seizures, what drugs can be used? Definitely phenobarbital, clonazepam, sodium valproate should not be given. There is no doubt about it. What was the option 4? What is it? Phenytoin was there. But phenytoin also is an unsafe drug. At least one reason to file a... But was it mentioned relative absolute? That's right. Generally in clinical practice what we do is we tend to give the clonazepam relatively whenever the patient has got a porphyria with the seizures. But on any given day, gabapentin, bigabatrin, once upon a time bromide, they used to be the drugs of choice, but definitely unsafe and safe drugs, I'm not sure what was there in the key of the examiner. What is the effective size of the rapid sand filter? The sand particles, our favorite question has come. Now all of you know that there is a slow sand filter. What is the size? 0.2 to 0.3 millimeters. And in the case of the rapid sand filter, it is 0.4 to 0.7, which is falling in that value range. 0.5 is falling. So that should be the answer. Now what is APC, adenomatous polyposis? It is a tumor suppressor gene. And it is the one which is typically located on the chromosome 5 between the position 21 and 22, that is on the long arm of the chromosome 5. Thank God examiner didn't ask long arm or short arm and hold your hand and then make a pulley on. So that is called, what you call, ballroom dance in entrance. Then string sign of Cantor. So what is the string? String is what we use, what is used by the Granima. So this kind of appearance is what you see in the case of the Crohn's disease is what need to be remembered. Now which Clostridium tetani has no flagella? I have no answer and reference for this. Is it there in Anantanarayanan? 6 was also there? Non-motile, okay. So type 6 should be the answer you mean? Okay. Now let us go to the next question. What is a dimorphic fungus? What do you mean by dimorphic? Dimorphic means Monday to Friday working in Bangalore, Saturday, Sunday staying in Hyderabad with the family. Who will do that? Sporotrichosis, blastomycosis, histoplasmosis, coccidomycosis, paracoccidomycosis and penicillosis. They are all responsible. Sporotrichosis caused by the Sporothrix kenkii, which is also called the rose gardener's disease, is the one which is an example of a dimorphic fungus is what I like to underscore to all of you. Now let us talk about the choledochal cysts. Too many classifications in the entrance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are choledochal cysts, doctor? It is the congenital dilatation of the biliary duct. Type 1 is the most common type, where the entire common hepatic, common bile duct is the one which is involved. Type 2 is isolated protrusion, and type 3 is choledococele. Type 4 is basically the multiple dilatation of both intrahepatic and extrahepatic. Out of all, the type 1 is the most common type is what need to be remembered. What is the most common cause of adrenal insufficiency in India? हम इस देश के वासी हैं जिस देश में TB बहती है. So TB only and nothing else can be the answer. Few questions, close the eyes and answer. If you open, you will get too many thoughts. So whereas in breast, what is the cause? Autoimmunity is the one which is responsible in that country. What are Krukenberg spindles? Okay, I like to ask a quiz question to the junior students. Which chapter do you get this? I mean, Krukenberg's is what we listen in ovarian tumors, etc. We are not talking about that. You heard of that cornea guttata and all those corneal dystrophies. That is the place we have to talk about it. This is an example of a direct illumination, how a Krukenberg spindle basically looks like on a direct illumination. So there are pigment deposits which can be seen by retroillumination, and it is the endothelium of the cornea where there is pigmentation there, and that leads to development of one of the types of the corneal degenerative disorders is what you need to basically remember. Sodium chromoglycate is used in the case of as a mast cell stabilizer in the case of allergic diathesis. What is the classification of allergic conjunctivitis, doctor? It is divided into seasonal allergic conjunctivitis, SAC, and perennial allergic conjunctivitis, vernal keratoconjunctivitis, papillary keratoconjunctivitis, etc. So finally, mast cell stabilizers. What are the, other than cromolyn, what else do you use? Iodoxamide, nidocromil, ketotifen and cromolyn sodium, all of them are used in the case of the vernal conjunctivitis is what need to be remembered. Who is the guardian of the human genome? Everybody answers this, P53. And P53, doctor, invariably one question comes. What was the question in the recent Ames All India? How does it act? At which part of the cell cycle does it act? So P53 is the one which is located on the chromosome number 17. It has got a proline-rich domain inside it, and it can initiate apoptosis, and that is the mechanism by which it basically functions. Let us go to the next question. Basically, the teacher is like King Dhritarashtra, doctor. He is blind, he didn't take the entrance. So, for those people who took the entrance, don't be annoyed if question frame is different. I heard it from various Viduras from different parts of the country, our own students. Now I like to ask you a question. Did he give this part, tumors on the external surface, is it there in the framing of the question? It's not there, right? Because if it is there, there is a Zameen Asma difference. We'll talk about it. What is the FIGO staging of ovarian cancer? This is our agreement that definitely question comes from carcinoma, endometrium, ovary and cervical cancer. Staging must be stuck onto the wall. Every day you must visit like a museum. There is no other way other than that. Stage 1 is growth limited to ovaries. Stage 2 is involving one or both ovaries with pelvic extension. Stage 3 is peritoneal implants outside the pelvis and also superficial liver metastasis. And stage 4 is the distant metastasis is what need to be remembered. Now within the stage 1 you have the 1A, 1B and 1C. And 1A is growth limited to only one ovary, but here the growth is limited to both ovaries. So it is stage 1B. And there is no ascites or ascites will decide. No ascites will put it under 1B. Because there is no ascites, it is more likely to be 1B here. But in the case of the 1B, there is no tumor on the external surface. But in the frame, anything mentioned about the external surface? No. Okay. So let us assume until results come, 1B and B are correct kind of thing. Now let us go to the next question. Which is not a germ cell tumor of the ovary? So nearly 6 to 7 questions on only these 3 topics. Endometrium, ovary, fibroid, cervix. DGO is over. 2 years is over in 2 minutes. Only in managing these things, right? So now the question comes. What is the classification of ovarian tumors? You have epithelial ovarian carcinoma, germ cell tumors, sex cord stromal tumors. That is how you basically divide them into